buying with a plan will change your financial situation. And I think that's really the direction of the conversation that I want to take too. It's not just like live over here because it's cheap, because it's easy. It's like, do you understand if you move to a house, at least for a few years, that was paid off, how much that could change your situation?
Oh my gosh. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thank Me Later show with me, your host, Jini Thornton, where we help you master your money and transform your life. So I'm so excited. Y'all know we started this new series. This is our Legacy Builder series because, we're so focused on legacy building. And a lot of that comes through our amazing event, our Black Women Will event. And this is where we intentionally tap in and talk to Black women who have participated in Black Women Will, because we want to understand their journey, because ultimately our goal is to make sure all of you out there do the same thing too. We have been taught to work so hard, but now we have to learn how to protect our legacy, build and protect our legacy to make sure that it transfers on. So I'm so excited to have back a good friend and also a fellow entertainment industry colleague, Kirsten Daniel. Hey, Kirsten.
Hi, Jini. How are you?
Girl, you are crazy. I am good. I'm good. So I want to let you tell people just a little bit about what you do in the amazing entertainment industry, but then I want to really begin to tap into specifically your whole legacy journey. Okay. So I want them to know about your management business and all of the amazing brands that you've created, all the things that you've done here in the amazing city of Atlanta.
Okay, so I'm I manage creativity, and I'm also a creative producer. So in terms of managing creativity, I have a management agency. I work with producers mostly just to help them with their business on the admin side, help them amplify their business and their direction. Also, I do some marketing. Some music marketing, also under that entity, where I just help independent artists understand how to create a proper rollout as they are building and climbing and establishing themselves as young artists, young creatives. In addition to that, I have my own creative endeavors where I have created a brand called Ateaelle. And in that brand, it's like my personal love story to Atlanta through the lens of a Black woman. So I have created all concepts, most notably Old Atlanta. I have created some shirts that say, shake that Laffy Taffy. I've done some ode to some wing spots, and I created a shirt that said, don't sell your grandma's house, because, again, Black woman stories. I still work with different entities. If there are some creative needs that they have, and they need a creative producer, then I kind of step in that role as well, just to kind of help them blend their goals with other vendors, other creatives, and, help execute.
Well, thank you for mentioning your relationship with your love affair and relationship with Atlanta, because a lot of what we're going to talk about today is through the lens of that, particularly when you think about the gentrification that's happened in this amazing city. And you know it better than the rest of us who are the transplants. Even if you've been here for a while, we're still transplants. But in the context of legacy, that is so important when we talk about, what's happening within our city, and not just our city, just cities across the country, with people, passing on and leaving a legacy, leaving houses to people. And a lot of young folks are like, I'm good, let's sell and keep it going. And other people are like, girl, please don't do that. You need to absolutely hold on to that.
Yeah.
But definitely want to talk about that through the lens of Atlanta. So you were part of our class of 2022, I think.
Yes.
And so why did you finally decide to get your documents done? Like, what was it? Because you knew that you probably should have done it before, right?
Not actually.
Really?
I don't think that, even though I'm a homeowner, we have been, I don't know, not indoctrinated. I don't know what the word is, but it feels like that's something for older people to think about. And for me to be a person in my 30s, I'm like, a will, and also I don't have children. So I'm like, well, what I got, like there's no reason for me to have that. So I was so happy when you started this, because I think that it gave some understanding to people like me to really understand the value of having assets and how to manage your assets properly. So I did not think about doing this. Like I've lost most of my really close relatives. So obviously I've experienced loss. I know what happens after a loss and how it can really tear up families.
Right.
So beyond me being in my 30s, it was also just the fact that, well, I don't have children, so is this a priority for me right now? But when this opportunity arose for me to participate, it really gave perspective to the fact that I was absolutely in the right place at the right time and doing what I should be doing, because just the working with the paralegals to help me, like all these questions I never thought about. And some of them like, okay, well, these things might change, for the sake of us doing this today,
right,
we can get it done. But my answers might change because I just never thought about who things go to, right, how, what percentage, who's in charge.
Yes.
I just, it's just conversations that haven't happened in my family. So I'm so excited to have been a part of that, and like really will always be a cheerleader for Black Women Will, because it's so important.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your perspective, because I think a lot of times we think that people knew that they should do it, they just hadn't taken the action. Mm-mm. So thank you for sharing. Like, this was not even on your radar at all.
Will means death.
Okay.
Like,
we don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. Will is like
in my
death. I'm like, hold on. What you trying to say? Wait, I got more time.
Right.
Knowing that we have no control over that, but in your mind, it's like, wait, I'll figure that out when I get to be in my 60s.
Gotcha.
70s.
Right.
80s.
Right. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Will means death, and I wasn't ready to think about that.
Right.
But I needed to be.
The other thing that we've learned through Black Women Will is that single women with no children have said the same thing over and over again, that they definitely are the ones who didn't need to make sure that their legacy plan was together. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I did not even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that too. And we've really been able to lean into that community, because I'm like, no. Y'all actually are more, we really have to make sure that you're straight, because you have to decide who do you want to be in charge. Because people think a will is just about who's going to get what. That's important. Mm-hmm. Whether you have 5,000 or 500 million, that's important. But who is going to be in charge? That's really important to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Now, in a way, I think I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that, because, that's one thing that we have in common is we both lost our mothers early. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think maybe, because I was older than you when my mother passed away, that just made me very conscientious.
Yeah.
And maybe I think a little afraid too. Like, I really got to kind of have my stuff together. Losing your mom early and losing some other family members, it still didn't kind of connect with you that you needed to?
I think it did, but it hadn't been a conversation in my family.
Okay. In
terms of who will do what.
Okay.
And I just imagine like, well, I want to make sure that nobody has anything to pay on my behalf.
Right.
But so I was a little bit aware, but still not prepared to take the step to get it done, because I'm thinking, I got some time.
You got time.
That's not a priority. Now, if I had kids, I would have definitely thought that, like, I got to get this done.
Okay.
Because I was young when my mom passed. So I know the importance of, like, setting up children. But I just didn't think about it because I didn't have that.
And so how old were you when your mom passed away?
15.
15. Mm-hmm. And was there order after? I mean, obviously you weren't in charge because you were a minor. Mm-mm. No order.
It was no order. Well, let me say this. She had things in place to where me and my brother were straight. But I think in terms of she did have a will that she had done, months before, like when she knew that, But there was still not like one person to take charge. It was, I lived with my stepfather at the time. He's like, this is what your mom said she wanted to happen. This is what's happening. Y'all gonna be straight. So it was more of that, but it wasn't as organized as it could have been.
Right.
Considering she had siblings.
Right. And then at that point, was there something left for you all, you and your brother, from a financial perspective to kind of give you all the stuff?
Yeah, she had pension and she worked for the city.
Okay.
She worked for the city of Atlanta, Fulton County, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So, there were things in place.
Mm-hmm. And I know it's particularly losing your parents early just kind of reframes your life very quickly. Yes, from a personal, but also from a business perspective too. So how has that impacted you kind of like financially? Like how you moved? Did you think you were more afraid? Did it make you more?
It really made it so that I know that I didn't have a backup plan. There was not a mother to mother me when things aren't going right. So I can be sad about it, but ultimately I got to figure it out. I don't have nobody to go home to and let me sleep on your sofa. I can't. I don't have that. I got to make my own sofa. I got to go buy my own, and I want it to come from Crate and Barrel. Right. So that means I need to make more money. So it was really that. It was that I knew I didn't have a backup plan. Right. Like, yes, I had family that could support me, but I'm kind of expensive, so it's like the way I want things to go, I had to figure it out on my own. Right. There was never an option.
That explains your personality so much, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you definitely got the hustle, get to it, grind mentality for sure, but you had to learn that early.
Yeah, it's up to me to figure it out. It's not up to anybody else. Everyone else is living their own life.
Right, for sure. So I want to talk about Don't Sell Your Grandma's House.
Okay.
So explain to people, you came up with this concept, this shirt, you had this saying, and what was the motivation behind that?
Well, it was a point of contention in my family.
Really?
Yeah, that it happened on both sides. On one side, it didn't sell. On the other side, they did. And that wasn't my real reason, the first reason why I created it. I live in Southwest Atlanta now.
Okay.
And in my neighborhood, they're mostly retired women. A lot of them are retired school teachers. And I'm watching these homes not be well taken care of. I don't know where their children are, but I don't feel like their children come back to support them as often. So I try to be as neighborly as I can. But I'm seeing how once a house becomes available in my neighborhood, somebody's coming in very quickly to switch some stuff up, put a fresh coat of paint, do some half behind jobs on the renovation, and putting a $500,000 price tag on there. Now in my neighborhood, we're up to about $800,000.
Shut up.
Yeah, you know where I live. It ain't worth that. Like it's a good area. Obviously, it's very the proximity to all of the bells and whistles of the city are there. But I just don't think it's fair, and I think that we are getting left out of the conversation. Especially now as the online conversation about selling, buying versus renting becomes more popular. I get it. Totally understand it. But I think we're being left out of the wealth conversation because we are so unwilling to see a thing and it not be what we want it to be, but use that as a stepping stone for the next thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, you may want a bigger house. I want a bigger house right now, but I don't have one because I wanted to buy in this neighborhood where I know A, I can get my equity, and B, I wanted to be around my folks.
Right.
So that was the motivation. The motivation was me living in the neighborhood where mostly older women are and seeing the way that the neighborhood is taking shape and seeing how many people are moving into my neighborhood. It is impressive the amount of people that are not black that are in the neighborhood walking around all willy-nilly all times of morning and night and in a place where you would never thought
not
that
in
was
a million years that it was possible.
Yeah. But because they see the value in it, but we don't. And so that was really the message. Like, please don't sell because you can make more money even if you sat on it for a few years. Like the house, your grandparents might have paid $15,000 for the house, $20,000 when you can make $400,000-$500,000 if you wait long enough or if you sat on it a while.
Why do you think we don't see the value in things? Culturally, what is that?
We don't want to work. That controversial thing to say, but you got to work to fix that stuff. Things are broken, you have to fix it.
Right, got to pay the taxes.
It's easy to call, if you live in an apartment, and I want to make this disclaimer. Mm-hmm. It's okay if you choose not to own, because it is a lot of work. Right. But again, like seeing, without telling too much of my business, this is my second home I stayed in. I made a very smart decision to buy, when I was 26 or 27, my first home. Right. And it was worth a lot of money when I moved from it. Right. So again, buying with a plan will change your financial situation. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the direction of the conversation that I want to take too. It's not just like live over here because it's cheap, because it's easy. It's like, do you understand if you move to a house, at least for a few years, that was paid off, how much that could change your situation? Oh my gosh. I went apartment shopping with a client not too long ago. Every apartment, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000. I'm like, oh my God, how are people affording this? This is so much money. You know what I mean? But to the idea of living there, paying that much money for people to, treat you like whatever, and then leave and not having anything to show for it, that don't sit right with me. But I get that it works for some people, but just understand how much different it could be if you put your own love into a place that you could potentially own. And it's interesting when I hear you say that. I think a lot of times people feel like younger people don't want to be bothered. They want things to be easy. I don't think it's just younger people that are the problem, because in the context of inheriting property, it's not kids that's inheriting. Yeah. It's grown people who are inheriting, and they're just like, oh, I'm out. Yeah. Let me get that check and go. Yeah. And not understanding, like you said, there is not just a house. We're talking about the transfer of wealth. The transfer of wealth, yeah. And you might have to get that asbestos out of that basement. Right. You need a mold remediation plan, and that stuff is expensive. Right. But to own it and to just not have, can you imagine not having to pay a mortgage or rent? It's just crazy. Paying taxes a year? I'm trying to get there one day. Right. and instead of that being something that's far off, you can't even conceive that, mm-hmm. That's a real thing. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely a real thing. Yeah. But again, I don't know what it's going to take for us culturally to be okay with having these conversations within our families. Yeah. Because we don't want to talk about money and business in our families. No, we don't talk about money until we need some. Right. But I'm like, we have to get used to this, because we are literally talking about transferring wealth. This is one group to the next. Yeah. One thing that I've been talking about a lot, Kirsten, is that the wealthiest group in U.S. history are the baby boomers. So this would be like your great aunts and uncles, people in your family, they're the wealthiest group in U.S. history. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, they're beginning to pass away. Mm-hmm. Nobody's having the conversation about what's the plan. It's not like I want Auntie so-and-so's money or I want her house, but we must have a plan with what's going to happen with the property, the land, whatever the case may be. We're not talking about that at all. Yeah. So does it work the same way in your family too? Y'all not talking about it either? It's not being talked about. It's not being talked about. Right. Lots of things aren't talked about in my family, and I am ringing the bell. Right. I am the one coming in hey, y'all, it's time to get serious about this. What's the plan? What's the strategy here? And it takes some time for them to get comfortable with. Right. It takes some time, because what happens is people are in situations, and what I've realized, even talking to some of my neighbors, is that you realize, you've been renting for 25 years. Oh my gosh. So, that's why we haven't had this conversation. You've been renting for a long time. Why are you renting this house for that long? Right. Or they, may not have anything or anywhere to go, or don't want to go to a living facility. Right, assisted living. To where, so it's so many different variables there in terms of why these conversations aren't being had. Right. In my experience, they're like, you in my business. Like, wait a minute, you get to a certain point where you don't get to have your own business no more. Absolutely. Because people need to be able to care for you. Absolutely. So it's a tough thing. And I think in Black community, we have so many secrets. Right. We have so many secrets that we just have to really start to penetrate and start to be more open about, because the more open we are in our family about, the history physical history, you know what I mean? Like medical history, you realize that you didn't know things about people. Personal history, the more we understand about each other, the better we are equipped to be able to resolve some of the issues.
And we have to be okay talking about money, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we still tiptoeing around it. We absolutely have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Kirsten, we're going to transition into one of our hotline calls right now, but this one was submitted to us through email, so I'm just going to read it to you. So this is Miss Jasmine from Houston.
Okay, hey, Jasmine.
Hey, Jasmine. And Jasmine says that she... has been having a challenge getting her family all on one page.
Okay.
The different opinions, people aren't willing to have that conversation. I would like to respond to it, and I'm just kind of curious how you've handled things in your family. One thing that a recent event that's happened in our family is, my husband David well. Mm-hmm. He and his sister have begun doing the work with their mom, right? Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed too is it's not like a one and done. Like, oh, we're gonna sit down with her one time and we're done. Like, you have to commit to the process of it. You cannot just sprinkle some, kind of pixie dust over this, and now everyone is going to be on one accord. Like, you're going to have to approach that again and again. Not every day, but again, we're going to have to kind of normalize that. And we don't want people to think that we're kind of taking that power away from them. I think that's kind of where the scary part happens too. Again, culturally, we're good for keeping secrets.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
So do you play a similar role in your family?
I do. I am one of the most communicative in my family, meaning I am expressive regardless of what you feel about what I have to say or not. But normally what I do is I start to just say it, knowing that the person may or may not be receptive towards it.
It's okay. Yeah.
But I'm saying it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep saying it. And eventually you will either snap back at me and it will open up the door for a dialogue.
Right.
Or you will receive what I'm trying to say in love. Mm-hmm. But I think that you're right. It does take a process. You do not just tell your family members that are, elders, all right, you got about 2 more years in this house before you got to go. Right. You just can't do that. They don't want to receive it because also a lot of elders are really sad and depressed, from their studies about loneliness.
Right.
Their studies about, all types of things that they're experiencing. So you can't just come out and be like, oh, this is what has to happen when this is a place where they've been for X amount of years. And this is where they've started, where their lives have mostly been. So, it's a process. It takes a while.
It's a strategy.
And, just kind of like always making sure to not let it go. Because if you let it go, they will let it go. But be very intentional about the way you communicate about the needs of your family, because they're likely not telling you everything.
Right.
And they're not thinking about what's next.
But we have to get it done.
Yes.
So one thing I'm excited to talk about is that you're partnering with us for Black Women Will 2024. Yes. Kirk, you are crazy. So why did you have the idea? Because you reached out to me and was like, oh, I have this idea. We need to collaborate. Black Women Will and Don't Sell Your Grandma's House. Like, what was your inspiration for that?
I was having a conversation with someone just about Black women, because it's been my recent obsession, my recent study. Like, I've always just loved surrounding myself with Black women. I think it's just in part because I lost my mom so early that, like, I just find pieces of women that I can connect with. But particularly the art of how we maneuver through life I'm very fascinated by it. So I was talking to someone about Black Women Will, because I try to always talk about that to people. Like, make sure you telling them to sign up, because I also know how stubborn Black women are.
Right.
And it really just kind of clicked to me, like, wait a minute, we're doing all of this in the name of Black women, and Jani is sitting literally right here. It just makes so much sense. When I was a part of the class of 2022, there were a lot of senior women that were there, and that it made me so happy to see that they were actually taking control. Because if you think back, and this is not everyone's story, but 40, 50 years ago, a lot of women may not have owned the house, or they may not have been the working person in the home.
Absolutely.
So to have the opportunity,
she couldn't get the mortgage.
Could not get the mortgage.
No,
could not get the mortgage. So to see them now actively coming through and taking control of the way of their future organization, it meant a lot to me, and I just think that it was the perfect. It was the perfect partnership because you're right there and you're doing things in support of Black women, and I think this message that I've been trying to push for a while, it's literally the same thing.
Well, we're excited about being able to partner with you, and I think it means a lot in Atlanta too, as you see Atlanta changing. I'll never forget the first time I drove down Cascade and I saw this white guy jogging, and I literally stopped and called David, like, what is happening right now? Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Like, no, the world is changing very quickly, and when it's not just a cute slogan, don't sell your grandma's house. Like, y'all need to really kind of think about this.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan? What is your plan?
Yeah.
So we're excited about having the opportunity to collaborate. And it's not just a cute saying to me. Again, it's just about the awareness, the intentionality, the wealth transfer that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because for most of us, for most Black people, that is in real estate, period.
And that's the education I think that so many people are missing is like, what are the benefits? I think people look at it as though they're taking on a burden,
a headache.
And if you are having a transfer of wealth in the form of real estate, and even like if it's already paid off, even if you got to take out a loan for $15,000, $20,000
to get it fixed up, right?
There's still so much more peace that comes with that than to figure out, what to do next. I got tired of moving. I bought early because I got tired of moving every year.
Right.
That was my thing. Right. Like, oh no, oh no, and you're not just gonna be able to go up on my rent whenever you want to.
Right.
But to understand how much possibility is in ownership, I think if people understood that. Now the process has gotten a lot more strenuous.
Yeah.
In the past couple of years. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and it requires a lot of discipline in order to do so. But it's still worth it.
Right. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Since this whole conversation is centered around leaving your legacy, what does leaving your legacy mean to you?
Oh, you always ask me something that I've been like thinking about. I've been thinking about that lately because I don't have children. But I think that my legacy is in the way that I live. It's now in the political landscape, we're hearing a lot about, we're seeing an attack against leadership that does not have children, as though that is diminishing. Right. I feel like I live the most rich life because I can do what I want to do. And that was on purpose, like I intentionally knew that this is the life that I wanted to live for myself. And I would like for women and other people just to be able to see how much beauty and peace comes when you can really have autonomy over the way that you live your life and being able to explore and do different things. My legacy is in my creative work. My legacy is in the way that I live my life and just the energy that I transfer to people, hopefully when we interact.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I also like the fact that we're having more discussions about this whole thing about women who do have kids and women who don't. Because we didn't talk about it as much now, but I'm glad this stuff is happening so we can have a discussion about it. Because there's so much more to life than just that. Yeah. You have a legacy regardless. Legacy is not based on if you have children or not.
Correct.
It's like, what have you intentionally created and how are you going to pass that on? Yeah. How are you going to leave your mark on the world?
Yeah, I feel like I've contributed already so much, and I still have so much more to contribute that I will leave here for people to be able to hopefully one day, review, research, study, admire, whatever.
Right. Well, thank you for being part of the class of 2022.
I'm so happy to have been a part of it. Ever since you told me that this is what you're going to do, I'm like, oh, Jini, you done figured it out now.
You think so?
Yeah.
Girl, we trying.
You have figured it out. I mean, I just think that there's so much power in that. It's just so much power in the ability to be able, things don't be targeted to Black women.
Well, I think the reason why this is important to us is because we've been taught to work hard.
Yes.
We haven't been taught properly how to transfer what we've built.
Correct.
And again, 5,500 million, you have accumulated something.
Yes.
Like, what we going to do with that?
Yeah.
We have to be intentional about that.
Yeah.
So that's all it is. It's just a cute way,
Yeah.
an exciting way of just shining the light on that and making sure we have our stuff together.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I'm so happy to have been a part of it, and I'm excited about our partnership this year.
Partnership class of 2024. So if people want to stay in touch with you, Miss Kirsten.
Yeah, I can be found on Instagram at Hey Kirsten, HeyKirsten, or at Ateaelle, where I sell the products that represent a Black woman's journey in Atlanta. And that's Ateaelle, or that's Ateaelle.com. Again, same spelling, www.ateaelle.com.
So for those of you who are watching today, if this video helped you in any way, please make sure you comment and share and subscribe and like and all the things. And let us know what you want us to talk about. That's really important to us. You can stay in touch with us, of course, at Jini Thornton, at TML Money. And you can engage with all of our content. ThankMeLaterShow.com. Of course, we're on YouTube, all the things where you find podcasts. So thank you for tuning into this episode of the Thank Me Later Show with me, your host, Jini Thornton, where we help you master your money and transform your life. We'll see you next episode.